we've seen one more mushroom we found in Inwood Park. One over the other, oyster mushrooms. They're shelf-like, but they have gills underneath. They are a grayish brown, white underneath, and it smells like seafood. Here, pass this around, let everyone smell it. And you put this in any kind of seafood recipe. We didn't get a huge amount of this. If I'd gotten a lot of this, I would have made oyster Newburg with a vegan version of the same kind of sauce that's used in lobster Newburg, and that comes out wonderful too. Oyster mushrooms are not as easy to identify as the chicken mushroom, but if you come on tours and see these a few times, there's nothing poisonous that looks like them. There's some things that are hairy and coarse that are called Pleurotus that is not going to hurt you, but it's not something that you can eat. So this is a really, really delicious mushroom. One of the few mushrooms that comes up if it rains a lot in the middle of the winter. Oyster mushroom comes up any time of the year. There is one danger with the oyster mushroom which befell my friend Joe. Joe had just moved to Connecticut. He'd been coming on tours with me for many, many years and loved mushrooms. And soon after he moved to Connecticut, it had rained a lot. Mushrooms come up after the rain. And one day he was driving down the road. And suddenly he stopped his car there on the side of the road. On a dead tree, on a lawn by a big house, were 10 pounds of oyster mushrooms. He was so happy. He said to himself, "That must be 10 pounds of oyster mushrooms. I'm going to take them home and cook them." He took out a pocket knife, took a bag, ran across the lawn, past the house, over to the tree, cut down the mushrooms, put them in his bag, went back to his car, and started driving home again. Ten minutes later, he heard a noise that got louder and louder and louder. "This is the state police. Pull over to the side of the road." Joe pulled his car over to the side of the road. "Yes, officer, is there a problem?" "There sure is. We just got a call from this warden of the state prison, and he said there was someone running across his lawn with a knife." "When did you escape from prison? Why were you trying to kill the warden?" "We're going to take you back. You're never going to get out again." "It was me, but it wasn't me. I wasn't trying to kill the warden." Well, Joe identified himself. He had his driver's license. He showed the cop the mushrooms. And fortunately, the cop was in a good mood. He let him go. "All right, I'm going to let you go this time, but don't ever do that again." "No, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to scare anyone with a knife." Well, Joe went home quite shaken, but the mushrooms were so good, he cooked them and ate them and felt much better. But 2 weeks later, it rained and rained and rained again. And Joe just happened to be driving down the same road. And suddenly he stopped his car there on the same tree, on the same lawn, by the same house were 20 pounds of oyster mushrooms. Joe said to himself, "There must be 20 pounds of oyster mushrooms. I want them for dinner, but I don't want the police to come after me. But I really want those mushrooms, but I don't want to be locked up. But I'm hungry." What was the smartest thing for Joe to do? He rang the bell. Zzz. Who should come out but the warden himself? "Yes, sir, what can I do for you?" And Joe says, "Excuse me, I was driving past your house and I saw all of these mushrooms on your tree. They're oyster mushrooms. I know they're edible. Would you mind if I took some home for dinner?" And the warden thought for a second, scratched his head. Big smile lights up his face. "Sure, go ahead. Have all the mushrooms you want. As a matter of fact, it was so nice of you to stop, knock on the door, and ask permission. You wouldn't believe the nerve of the last guy to find mushrooms on my tree." And they all lived happily ever after.